next to the Jacobs, which people would recognise as George White's. It was a chemist on the corner, just as you're passing, before you come to Thomas Hill, I think it is, or Thomas Street. George White's. Again, a huge history there. A member of the White family came to Waterford and started trading as a small hardware and grocery. And eventually it became a chemist. That's in latter years. But before that, they had become interested in shipping. And Albert White started this massive shipbuilding, and it was a golden era for the wooden boats. And his dock was on the far side of the quays, and he built a house which was up to recently a hotel called the Athenaeum. So that was the house of the Whites. But the docks there, and Bill Irish in his book has a huge amount about the Whites and their shipbuilding. They were huge employers. So it started over in a small little shop in O'Connell Street, and then the father, when he died, there were two sons. Albert took the shipbuilding, and George took the shop, and the shop was then developed into hardware, rope building, ropes making, anything to do with the ships. But then they came into being chemists, and when we came to Waterford, that was our chemist shop, and they had quite a bit of land at the back as well. And the facade of that is still there. I have photographs, internal photographs actually, of that, which is fantastic. Wooden floors and big counters of wood. It was a huge, massive area. That's all gone, I think, inside, but the facade is there.
We're here at the premises, what was once the premises of the White family, who were Quaker entrepreneurs, and began in 1775 when Thomas Wise opened his first store here on this site as a grocery, which grew and grew as an enterprise. The White family, like many of their kith and kin, were prominent Quaker entrepreneurs in Waterford with extensive shipping businesses interests in the city. Thomas Wise began trading here in what is now O'Connell Street, formerly King Street, in 1775, when he opened a grocery store. He was succeeded by his son, William, in 1799. White's business prospered, and very soon they were stocking a wide variety of imported goods, such as tea, coffee, spices, sugar, hemp, and tar. The ever-increasing extent of their trade led them into building their own ships. William White opened the Shipyard in Ferrybank across the way in 1818. Many of their skilled workers and labourers were recruited locally. Between 1820 and 1870, craftsmen and artisans built over 60 wooden sailing ships. The work was of such a high quality that the reputation of Whites grew nationally, indeed internationally, and in high demand by leading cross-channel ship owners in Britain and elsewhere, including Blythe and Beasley. Of their 60 sailing ships, the full-rig 201-foot Maire England, built in 1856, was the biggest wooden sailing vessel ever built in Ireland. Earlier in 1835, the Hellas, a 92-foot schooner, had the distinction of being the first ship to bring a consignment of tea direct from Canton, China to Ireland for Bewley's of Dublin. Makes one think of bringing tea and oranges all the way from China. In time, the businesses passed on to William's sons, George and Albert, with the latter taking over the shipping interest while George stayed with the store, developing it further, including a pharmacy. Everything from a needle to an anchor, as they say. The present building dates from 1874. The arrival of steam hastened the end of commercial wooden vessels, so the shipyard closed in 1870, while the store became very much a Waterford institution, ending a long legacy of trading here in 1986. An awful lot of the Waterford Quakers, not all of them, but some of them, like the Malcolmsons, the Grubbs, etc., came from Clonmel and Carrick. John Grubb they were grain merchants. The person who wrote the first history of the Quakers in Ireland was Sarah Grubb. So Grubbs were very much identified with Clonmel and with milling. Malcolmsons came down to work for the Grubbs as a miller. Now, one of their Grubb's sons, John, married into the White family. So it became a Grubb business. For many years, there was the Grubb very much at the helm, especially in the latter years. And when the shop closed, a couple of years later, the Grubbs opened across the road a premise that used to be owned by the Hills, another Quaker family. You know, they always kept things in the family. They took over that premises there and they began training. Because there was kind of an art element they began to include in the previous shop. So they developed the art business. When they closed summer of last year, it was the end of, due to sums, I think 250 years of the Grubbs trading in that street. Wow. So Grubb became a white, you see. But he ended up being the inheritor of the, tradition.
Yeah, he was originally a rep on the road, and then he came back there in the 80s, back to, before the 80s. Yeah, well, sometime. When he came off the road, he went in there, yeah.
And then he eventually went out on his own there?
No, unfortunately, the recession in the 80s got George White's after 200 years in business. Yeah, the recession of the 80s was the downfall. So he then rented the shop across. That used to be Hills from Ollie Flynn, and he rented that, and only up to 2 years ago, 35 years we were there, yeah.
And it was a famous shop. Just tell people what you sold.
In Grubb & Co then, yeah, it was art material and framing. Yeah.
And it was very important.
And there was a pet shop, of course, there. When we went there originally, we had pets. Rabbits and gerbils and birds and fish. Yeah. I remember George White's when I was small and didn't have any connections with it. Then most people used to come down and they used to have a train going around, electric Hornby train going around the window, and loads of people used to come and see that.
Was that Christmas?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And then when you went into George White's, what did they sell? What was in there?
Everything. Yeah, like from the cuttings I gave to you, they were ship's chandlers, they did ropes, they did everything like further back. But in those days, they did paint, picture framing. My father-in-law was a chemist, so they did pharmacy as well.